Gill, and I'm the longtime president. Is this too loud? I feel like I'm knocking you over. Okay. Longtime president of the International Jacques Ellul Society. It's my honor to welcome you here. And gotta look at my notes here. Anyway, we celebrated, we've been doing these biennial, every 2-year conferences for the last 12 years. So in 2012, we celebrated the centennial of Jacques Ellul's birth, 1912. In 2012 at Wheaton College nearby, where there's a robust Jacques Ellul archive and special collection. We'll have a representative from them here tomorrow. You can talk with Catherine Graber. And then in 2014, we gathered at Carleton College in Ottawa to think about communications and propaganda, Ellul's influence and other issues, communications and propaganda. In Berkeley in 2016, my alma mater and Langdon Winners, out there we gathered around the theme political illusion and reality. That was quite appropriate in that election year, and we should redo it this year, probably. But, and a book came out of that. In 2018, we were up in Vancouver, BC at Regent College, a theological college right next to UBC, where we looked at Ellul and scripture and theology. In Strasbourg, we have a plan to meet in 2020 around ethics and ecology, jointly with our French sister society, but COVID knocked us out. Eventually, a small gathering did take place on that theme. In 2022, in the summer, we met at McGill University in Montreal around the topic of the arts in a technological society. So this year, we are gathering at Roosevelt University here in Chicago to consider our 21st century technological society, the time we got to the main event in Jacques Ellul's thinking. And we're celebrating the 70th anniversary of Jacques Ellul's most famous and influential book, of the Technological Society. In French, it was La Technique ou l'enjeu du siècle. And if it was the stake of the century, which is what that subtitle means, if it was the stake of the 20th century, it most certainly is the stake of the century in the 21st siècle also. So, as it turns out, that is the great theme of our own time, is what are we going to do about this technological system and society? Certainly there are political issues and ecological ones as well, but technology is really critical with our own artificial intelligence and all of that, all the rage. And by the way, you've noticed in our program all of these myriad details, and I just want to point out that we use no AI in organizing this conference. We used no ChatGPT. What we used was an almost 80-year-old program called GI and a program called ChatDWG in order to accomplish this, with some upgrades from Morris, Fallon, and Ed Oust, and a couple bottles of Zinfandel in order to achieve that. So anyway, we're really grateful to be here at Roosevelt University in Chicago. And so I want to invite Keturah Brown, who's the Director of Conference and Special Events from the Roosevelt Office of the President, to say a word of welcome. So Keturah, would you please come up here? Let's welcome Keturah Brown.
Thank you, David. Thank you so very much, and welcome to Roosevelt University. Out of breath because it's so hot, so everybody picked a really good time to come to Chicago. So please, if it's your first time here, make sure you experience some of the wonderful culture, and don't forget about the food. Since Roosevelt has been established since 1945, it has been, I've learned so much being here in the 6 years that I've actually worked for Roosevelt in the President's office. I am responsible for all the conferences and special events, and I am really proud of everything that Roosevelt stands for, our mission, and while you're here, please make sure that you explore the campus. It is an architectural gem, and just make sure if you run into any faculty or staff, say hi. It's really welcoming, and we're all welcoming, and there's no students here. This would have been a great time to meet some of our wonderful students and that we actually have and showcase some of our other departments and things like that. But still, summertime Chicago, and it's still beautiful to have you all on campus. Again, if you see anybody in the hall, please stop and say hi. You see me, stop and say hi. I'd love to chat with all of you. Not all of you. At the same time, I mean. But welcome again to Roosevelt, and thank you all for being here.
You've been a joy to work with, and it's just appropriate that we give you a book written by Jacques Ellul. So this is called Presidents in the Modern World, and really it summarizes his theology and ethics, but also his sociology and his critique of tech. What's the problem with technology sometimes? And it's been signed. I autographed it because I wrote an introduction in here. And Jerome Ellul, the grandson of Jacques Ellul, did, and also Lisa Richmond, who did the translation. So this is a copy for you to remember us by. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope it on.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'd like to ask all of our Jacques Ellul Society board members, past and present, to stand up so we can applaud your work and leadership in our society and on this conference. So past and present board members, would you stand up? Yeah. And by the way, if you don't have a seat, come up. There are seats around here, and obviously they're round tables because we're going to be eating in here our banquet tonight. But just turn the chairs around and make yourself comfortable, but don't hesitate. And by the way, I know it's kind of intimidating that this is the men's bathroom right here. So, I don't know where the other men's bathroom is. There's a women's bathroom directly through Feynman Lounge at the end, and it says disabled, but actually it's a multiple person operation, so just use that one if you claim to be the female persuasion. And for men, this place, and Peter, is there another one upstairs?
There's a men's room right above this one.
Okay.
And a ladies' room down towards the stairway.
Okay. So somehow that's where they are. I want to also say that the International Jacques Ellul Society was founded in 2000, simultaneously with our Francophone sister society, the Association Internationale Jacques Ellul, which is presided over by Patrick Chastenet. So he's, I think many would say, the leading, or one of the leading Ellul scholars in the world. And like Daniel Saraswell, who's here, Patrick was one of Jacques Ellul's student assistants, did his PhD there. And Patrick could not be with us, although we're showing a video of a lecture that he's given for our conference later on in the program. But the roots of the International Jacques Ellul Society go back even deeper to 1988, which was the first year we published a journal called the Ellul Forum. And it was Darrell Fashing, a professor at the University of South Florida, who drove that effort, but a lot of us, Carl Mitchum and me and Langdon Winter and others, we were involved from day one. So it's the same group of conspirators going back many years, and actually even before 1988, when Jacques Ellul's work started appearing in English translation, and then for people who read French back in the 50s, there were people who were gathering and in small groups and discussing this and carrying his research forward. So the roots are deep, but by 2000 we really felt we need to organize to keep his books in print. So our IJES mission is not just about keeping books in print, but it's been threefold from day one, 24 years ago. First of all, to preserve the literary and intellectual heritage of Jacques Ellul. That means keeping his books in print and translated and in circulation and available, and keeping his ideas out there. Secondly, to extend his brilliant critique of our technological civilization. And third, to research the hope and freedom toward which Ellul pointed us. And those are the three purposes also for this conference. As we begin our 3 days together, a couple practical things. Please wear your name tag wherever you are in the building. You can take it off outside so you don't look like a vulnerable doofus from out of town. But part of our purpose within this building is to meet, to make some new friends, to converse with each other, so be bold. The name tags, just go up to people and talk to them, and when you see them or hear them, follow through and just be bold. And then exchange emails and phone numbers and addresses so we can, I mean, this is how we've operated for decades. We're a community of people from all over the place, and we maintain conversation and discussion. We've asked our speakers, by the way, to confine their remarks to 25 minutes or maybe 30 minutes at most, because in our 45-minute time frame, that should leave 10 or 15 minutes for discussion. Some of these speakers are kind of long-winded, though, and so that's why you want to keep those name tags on and buttonhole them out in the lounge there with the question you didn't get to ask, because there always will be more. To get every voice possible, we had a lot of people who wanted to speak and talk about and raise issues about technology, and we didn't want to say no. You know, we don't just sort of pick the most famous people who've published the most, but we want to hear new voices, new perspectives. So in order to do that, we had to have a lot of parallel sessions where you're going to have to pick between three different talks, three different tracks. What we're calling track A will meet in this room, and track B and C will meet in 2 classrooms right above here, up the stairway or the elevator, and there are signs, and in the program book too, it'll tell you what goes on where. We didn't, these were kind of randomly chosen, so the good stuff is all over the place and what you're interested in, so don't just take the easy route and get coffee and sit around here the whole time, but follow some of the other really fascinating topics upstairs. And just to remember also, all of these papers are posted at ellul.org already. Some of them are in very primitive form, and we admit it. Others are more developed. But anyway, that's where you can hear everybody or read everybody's ideas. Also, all of these programs are going, all of these papers are going to be videotaped by Jerome Ellul and his team, and they're going to be posted, I'd say, by the end of the summer. It takes a while to process 32 tapes, but we will have them all up so you can watch them all or rewatch some of them. And then we also thirdly hope that most of these papers will be represented in a book, and that may take as much as a year or something, or in some cases in our Ellul form as well. So it's rough to have to choose. I know I hate choosing, but we're going to have to do it. And I would just say, please show up on time. You know, don't wait till the appointed hour, 2 p.m., to start moving toward the classroom, but try to get there on time. I've been at conferences before where we don't run herd on these things, and things begin to slip back farther and farther, and then what happens is the people later on in the program are losing their time to be able to share their ideas. So in our egalitarian approach here, we want to stay on time, start on time, finish on time as much as we can. I know that's kind of a technique that's kind of ferocious, but we're going to do it in this case in service of our humanity and learning. You come, by the way, 120 people from a wide variety of professions and vocations. There are a lot of university and seminary professors here in a wide variety of fields, from philosophy to sociology, theology, communications, architecture, literature, engineering, the arts. But there's also a lot of independent scholars here, working artists and musicians, pastors, and others. You come from all over North America, but also farther afield. And so I'd like to ask a few people to stand up, and I know I'm going to miss somebody here, but I want to especially salute those of you who came over the water to be with us. So would you stand up so that we can all look at you? But don't applaud these people, because if we applaud every once, it'll take us the next half an hour. But let's stand up, beginning with Yanu's son. Where are you, Yanu? There you are. Don't applaud. I know you're tempted. Stay standing up, Yanu. Yanu's a doctoral student in the history of technology in China at Nanjing University. I love saying the School of Marxism, and so we're so happy to have Yanu here. Alamantas Samalivicius, where's Alamantas? There he is, from Lithuania. So good to have you back with us, Almontes. Ugachukwu Sofinus Anyanwu from Rome in the back. Ugo, it's so good to have you here. Elisabetta Ribet. Elisabetta, you stand up from Italy. Wonderful member of our board of directors, by the way, at this point. Jacob Marquez Rollison, where's Jacob? There he is on our board. And one of my successors, by the way, and Jacob is in Switzerland at Libri Fellowship. The Kerpenstein family from the Netherlands. All of you stand up. There's like 5 of you or something. Man, this is amazing to have you guys all the way from the Netherlands. It's just wonderful. Daniel and Anita Saraswell, where are you? Daniel and Anita. There's Daniel and Anita standing at the back. If you've ever visited Bordeaux in France, where Jacques Ellul lived, you almost certainly met Daniel and Anita Saraswell. These are the masters of hospitality. Lucia and I have often stayed in their house, and I just love these people. They're just, and Daniel and Anita grew up with the children of Jacques Ellul, so they know the family, and Daniel did his PhD there with a lot of doctoral study with Jacques Ellul. So it's wonderful, Daniel and Anita, to have you back with us again. And then finally, Jerome Ellul. Where is Jerome? Behind the... There you are. Jerome is one of the children of Jean Ellul, who is the oldest child of Jacques Ellul. So Jacques and Yvette had 4 children, actually. One son died tragically in an auto accident when he was hit by a truck or an automobile when he was just a young boy. But then there's Jean Ellul, followed by Yves and Dominique. They're all about my age, you know, so when I say they're kids, it's like, think of this. But Jerome was the oldest son of Jacques Ellul, a Cambodian anthropologist in Cambodia, and then a high school teacher in Bordeaux for many years. And Jerome is one of his 3 sons and 1 daughter. And Jerome has just been an exceptional link for us to the archives of Jacques Ellul. You go to his house in Bordeaux, just outside of Bordeaux, there's piles of boxes of letters and video. And so be sure you go up and meet Jerome while you're here, so you can actually just meet part of the family, because it's about a family thing, okay? So Jerome, it's wonderful to have you here. And Jerome, among other things, is a filmmaker. And so a film that he prepared for French 52-minute film, which was shown in France recently at the Colloquium, is going to be shown here on Friday night at 8:30. So I don't think there are sous-titres are there. Okay, so it's in French. You get a good chance. But a lot of video of Jacques Ellul himself. So it's going to be fascinating Friday night. And Jerome, it's wonderful to have you here. And I've met a few others of you who told me you came from Cyprus or somewhere else. And you know what? I can't remember everybody's name. But we're so happy to have you here and love the fact that you made the effort to spend so much time on an airplane or on a boat or whatever to get here. And of course, all over North America as well. We come from the east and the west and the north and the south. We are so happy you're here. And of course, we have our great musician guests, Thibault and Burnett, and his sidekick, who are coming at some point this afternoon and going to sing and speak to us this evening. This is an exceptional, amazing thing. And I want to, Ken Steinbach, would you stand up? Ken is our artist in residence, and Ken has put up an exhibit of his art out there in Feynman Lounge. You can read a little bit about it in the program, but then pursue this man and ask him more about his artwork. The huge missing person here is our longtime executive director, Ted Lewis, who unfortunately, sadly, was sidelined by a brain tumor which was discovered just 7 weeks ago on May 22nd. He was feeling bad, and he began to lose the ability to speak and to maintain his balance. He went in and got checked up, and they found this glioblastoma, I think that's what you call it. It's a very dangerous, threatening golf ball-sized tumor in his brain, they said. And so he has been declining ever since then. He had to immediately be relieved of all of his organizational stuff. This guy is amazing, and many of you have encountered him. I met him actually early in the 2000s because he had become the acquisitions editor to build up the Jacques Ellul collection in one place, because Ellul's books were all over the place in different publishers. Some of them were going out of print. So that's why Wittgenstock has this huge collection of Jacques Ellul books. Ted or I or others of you have written new introductions to some of these things, but it's an amazing collection, and Ted has more work in progress that we've got to kind of step up and try to take over. But it's an amazing thing. Well, that's how I met Ted, and then he came to our conference at Wheaton, and I began to meet him personally, and very soon we hired him on a part-time gig kind of basis to work as our executive director, helping us maintain and strengthen our website, helping us on our Ellul form production and things like that. And then, of course, Ted is my main sidekick organizing a conference like this. So when he went down, because of this, 7 weeks ago, it fell on me and on the rest of us to try to pick up the pieces, because this is an amazing man who we didn't ever have to pick up for, and now all of a sudden we got that. But anyway, a lot of you, I know Ted has, I talked with them a little bit, I Zoomed with him a couple of weeks ago. He really has trouble communicating. He has trouble remembering words when he's trying to articulate a thought. Some of you have been around people who suffered, late-stage memory loss or stroke or things like that, and Ted is in that kind of position. But a couple days ago, his daughters wrote me and said, Ted wants to come. Ted wants to come. So he's on his way right now in the car. They're driving from Minnesota, and their target is to get here between 5 and 6 or 4 and 6. And so he's in a wheelchair, and he'll have his wife and his 2 daughters, who are Ellie and Clarity, who are in their 30s, about, just so you know what the age range is. And I'm going to try to set him at this table over here for the banquet, so he could easily be taken out. And I know Ted's going to love seeing T-Bone. He's going to love seeing you, because he's invested. He wanted this to be a hit, and it is. And so we just want to love this guy. But he also will be confused if we all go at him and say, we love you, how are you doing? So we really need to avoid crowding around him. If you know Ted, especially if you know him well, then I would say approach him. And I don't mean to stay away from him ways, but we just don't want to crowd around him. I promised his daughter that we would do that, and she was so grateful. So we want to give him a lot of love, and we'll give him some applause and all that and recognize him, but we don't want to crowd around him, and also especially blitz him with questions, even though I know we'll all have a question, we'll have a beautiful thing to say to him, but just keep that in mind, okay? Now, one of Ted's greatest contributions is as the book acquisitions editor, as I said, and so we have a book table out there. Now, the publisher, Wittgenstock, is one of the greatest reprint publishers. They do a lot of new books also, but they do a lot of reprints. And so my own books, I've published 10 books. 9 of them now are published by Wittgenstock. And it's an amazing thing. Here's a good technology story, is old school publishers would print like 1,000 copies of your book and keep them on the shelf until they get ordered and sold. But the government started putting inventory taxes. So if you just have the book, you have to every year pay some tax on your inventory. And it became very expensive to have books that only sell a few copies a year, by Karl Barr or whoever it is. And so books go out of print. But Wittgenstock has a technology, I don't understand this. I've been at their place in Oregon, but somehow or other it's all coded in some computer thing. And so when people order one of my books, which is about the annual orders on a lot of my books, they somehow put in the flash drive, and at the other end of the line you get a book that looks good, it has a good cover that's not falling off, etc. So a lot of us have done that. Well, I'm saying that partly to apologize for the fact that they have several of my books there. Because when we said, look, we want a sample of all your Ellul books, they then added Lovekin's book and my book and a bunch of these, some of the rest of you. Montes has his book out there. So I apologize. It's not that I believe my books belong on the same table as Jacques Ellul's, but actually they're on the tables to the right or something. But anyway, so here's the deal. We could not, without Ted, we couldn't handle selling books. So what we're going to do is we have up there somewhere, I'll fumble around here, we have a 40% discount on every book on the table, 40% for this conference. And we have a list of all these things on 2 sides. Okay, so you can order all of those books at a 40% discount. It's calculated here. And then give us the form with your address on it, and we will hand it into Whippenstock. Or you could just take it home and send it to them. But now here's the thing I thought about, is we don't want to have to take those books. I don't want to have to ship them back to, so we can't sell them. But on the other hand, I don't want to pack them up and send them back to Oregon either. So I do want to get rid of them, in the sense of giving them to people who will love them. And so here's the idea, is since the big postage and shipping is for people who live overseas or outside of North America, we're going to say for the first couple days here, or I forgot to ask Katura, I need to get some Post-it notes. And so we're going to say, if you want to buy, if you're from Lithuania or anywhere outside the United States and Canada, if you want to buy any of those books, put your name on a Post-it note on that book. Don't take it, because it's still a sample for other people to look at. But at the end of the conference, you can take that book with you and just swear to me, and I know you're all into being ethical, that you will then send payment somehow to Whippenstock for the books that you take. Okay? And so first we'll make that available to people from outside North America. And then we'll have a window for Canadians, because it does cost more to ship it over the line. And then the last day will allow us poor Americans to pick books, whatever doesn't have a Post-it note, okay? So I'll try to remind you of that, but there is going to be a chance to buy some of these books. There's some brand new ones and things that are just fabulous that are just now available. There's also a special deal on Peter Fallon's book on Propaganda 2.1, and there's a notice about Jacques Ellul's book, L'éthique de la sanctité, which is going to appear in French this fall, and Marcus Rollison has been part of that. So now a few words, just a few words, I promise a few in 4 minutes about this conference as I work toward introducing our 2 legends of the philosophy of technology world. Technique and technology is at the core of Jacques Ellul's thought, of his 60 books and 1,000 articles and reviews. I just personally, this spring, reread the Technological Society, the Technological System, and the Technological Bluff. You know, this is like 1,000+ pages, and it's a long haul. But I'm here to tell you, it really is worth it. I just loved reading it, and I saw things that I never saw before, especially in the Technological Bluff. This is a fascinating book that he wrote, or published around 1989, and it's so much about how technology gets talked about. And it's kind of the way it presents itself as the pathway to our full humanity, you know, this kind of thing. Anyway, it's a brilliant book that I recommend, all 3 of them. It's really worth it. I was impressed again reading these books more than ever, not just at the depth of Jacques Ellul's insight, but also by his breadth and by his foresight. For example, writing about network systems, dysfunctions, implications of different types, side effects, and even artificial intelligence, you know, before 1989, right? It's amazing how much he writes about thinking machines and completely displacing humans from even organization, management, creativity, as people think of it. It's critically important, as I know most of you know in the room, but I have to say it, to remember that Ellul was not in any simplistic way anti-technology or anti-tool or anti-technique. As he wrote in Technological Society, the first book, making and improving tools is the primordial activity of human beings. It's not some alien effect of sin or something like that. This is what human beings do, is they work and they make, you know, get food and they make tools and that kind of thing. But each of these tools, Ellul argues, each of these tools, techniques, machines, and methods begs to be critically examined. What are the trade-offs and the risks and the possible long-term or negative impacts? A major part of what Ellul called the technological bluff is the promotion and justification of technological innovations while ignoring or masking these critical considerations. And so part of our purpose here at the conference is to raise these often ignored critical questions about our technology. And beyond the specific techniques and technologies, this is critical, is the ensemble. It's the ensemble of the whole thing, the system, the technological milieu. Sometimes Ellul says the worldview and the value system of what technique itself understood in that kind of grand sense. And it's that technique, in that large sense, that's the true foe of humanity and the earth. As such, technique is an unworthy, brutal, dehumanizing God. Technology is often good and sometimes great in the toolbox of life, but it's always terrible on the throne of life. This is how I make the case when I'm talking to people who don't read Ellul, and are hesitant about how do you criticize technology. And I say, look, technology can be great in the toolbox of life, but it's terrible when it's on the throne of life, and we're worshiping it and yielding to it at every turn. It can be a good servant, but a terrible master. The problem, I find this is helpful to explain to people also what we're going. And by the way, just one other thing is, one thing I love about Jacques Ellul is he not only wrote these big, fat, dense books, he also wrote a regular column in Sud-West, the local newspaper, when we lived over there. You know, I loved opening the paper and seeing a column by Jacques Ellul on one thing or another. And we need to do the same thing. We need to not only think deep thoughts and write journal articles, we need to learn how to communicate to our engineering friends, among some who are here, who already know how to do that. But you know, we need to follow Ellul's example in communicating to the people. So one of the ways I explain this is, I don't know who told me this story, but it's pretty good. But it's like the story of a fish who was swimming around and who was asked, how do you like the water? To which the fish replied, what's water? It never paid any attention to the environment. It didn't know any other way. So the problem with, I thought you'd think that was funny. I thought it was hilarious when I first heard it. Anyway, the problem with technique is not just about various individual tools. It's about the milieu, the environment, the metaverse, some would call it, in which we live, but which threatens both people and planet. Another joke, how do you even breathe underwater in an ocean like this? And the answer is you need some gills to be able to survive. You know, to survive. Okay, bad joke. One preliminary caution, I just about done here. Ellul said more than once he said and wrote, I'm not seeking disciples. He wasn't seeking mindless devotees. You know, he wasn't building a cult of any type. He was the most brilliant person I ever met in my life, even though I disagreed with him on various things, but easily the most brilliant person I ever encountered for sure. But if you read enough of his work and you read carefully, you will see, even in the 3 big books on technology, you will see places where he describes how he changed his mind. So which Ellul are you going to agree with? But he describes changing his mind. And I think he truly enjoyed debating differences when I and others would get together with him. You know, I spent one sabbatical in Bordeaux in '84, '85, and I met with him every other Friday afternoon at his house. And so some of the things I just couldn't agree with, how he interpreted some biblical ideas and his view of work, and you know, I couldn't see it. But you know, he loved it when I would push back because I quote him and push back. So Ellul was seeking not disciples, but he once said that his purpose was to provide his readers with the means of thinking through for themselves the meaning of their life in this world. He wants to give us the means for thinking through where we are, what the meaning of our life is. That was his purpose, not to create disciples, but to do that. We love this man and his brilliant work. I would use the word love. I just have this great affection, not only for him, I loved him as a person for sure. He was just engaging, he writes so fiercely at times, but he was always with a twinkle in his eye and a warm smile and engaging and loving my wife and I and our kids who were real little at the time. So we love this guy and his brilliant work, but we do no honor if all we do is accept it wholesale and then just exposit his ideas. Okay, we don't honor him by just being the expositors. I mean, that's a good service, actually, to explain what he said. But his role is that of a prophet, not a system-building abstract theorist. In the tradition of Kierkegaard, he paints a careful picture of a menacing system on the one hand, but that's dialectically set over against a humanity yearning to breathe and live free on the other side. And Ellul leaves us with no prefabricated intellectual syntheses or easy solutions, just an ongoing daily existential adventure in life. We never want to forget this prophetic stance and calling. Now just finally, what Ellul says we need first to do is we need to become critically and deeply aware of this technical milieu, and equally aware of our next door neighbor, Mario, he calls him even, aware of the human reality of people with us and around us, as well as aware of that big metaverse around us. And Carl Mitchum is going to do a great job helping us understand and also question and push on this concept of technique, the great thing we're trying to become aware of. And secondly, we need to invent ways of saying no. The first act of a free person, Jacques Ellul wrote, is to say no. You're not free of alcohol until you can be around it and say no. You're not free of your food addiction, I say to myself, unless you can be at a buffet and not continue eating. So, you know, it's the capacity to say no that really indicates our freedom. So it's setting limits and saying no. But we can't just be the naysayers of the world, the negative, curmudgeons of the world. So thirdly, and this is it, we need to never forget, we need to learn how to say yes. We need to learn to find the yes that we can say to the people around us, to our culture, the positive, hopeful, truthful, life-giving, freedom, demonstrating ways of thinking, speaking, and daily living wherever we are. To achieve these three things, awareness, limits, and yes, we need to find a place to stand that's exterior to the technological society, to the self-justifying world of technique. And we need a community of like-minded friends and colleagues to sustain us. We, my friends in this room, we are blessed to pursue this vision in the company of friends right here, right now. So welcome to the conference. You can applaud it. We're about to begin. Our first speaker, I'll take 5 minutes, but you know, I had 5 minutes to introduce him. But our first speaker is an amazing friend and scholar, Carl Mitchum. And Carl is going to speak to us about the concept of technique. Carl taught at Penn State University the Science, Technology, and Society program, one of the first STS programs that I knew about. He's published widely. I love his book, Thinking Through Technology, The Pathway Between Philosophy and Engineering. It's one of the best things about different ways of construing what technology and technique are all about. After Penn State, Carl moved to the Colorado School of Mines, where he's now emeritus professor. But in the last 20 years, he also has taught part of every year in China. And so I don't know how your Chinese is, Carl, but I know you're having an impact over there, and it's just been great. So would you please welcome Carl Mitchum.